Jill, right? Yeah. Yes. Good evening. This is ordinarily Swami Sarvadevanandaji's class on Shanti Gita, but he was called unexpectedly out to Texas. He'll be back on Thursday night, so I have been asked, he asked me to cover this class, and Swami Vivekananda will cover tomorrow's class. So Tuesday night is always the Jnana Yoga class. So that's why I've selected the song of the Sannyasin. So let's start with a prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitam astu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we acquire strength together. May our learning shine forth in our lives. May we not find fault with one another. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, where to begin? This Song of the Sannyasin, for those of you who don't know, this is a poem written by Swami Vivekananda on the ideal of monasticism. Now, we might ask, first of all, why are we learning about monasticism? We're not monks and nuns. We have our families and our jobs and all that. Why are you going to talk about this? Well, that's a good question. And I believe that there's something of the spirit of a monk or a nun in every sincere seeker of God. Because there's this, as you'll see, if you're not familiar with it, most of you probably know it. The poem is full of this boldness, this urgency that, yes, I must realize, I affirm that my true nature is consciousness itself, consciousness and bliss. I affirm that, and I must realize it. This boldness. And that boldness takes us so far, in some cases, as to embrace monastic life and say, I don't want anything else. I don't want anything. And just to let it all go. So that spirit shines through this poem. However, Swami Vivekananda wrote this poem when he was in Thousand Island Park. In the summer of 1895, he spent some 6 weeks. It was June 18 to August 6. He spent in Thousand Island Park at Miss Dutcher's cottage. Thousand Island Park is the name of one of the is the name of the community on one of the islands of the Thousand Islands in the St. Lawrence River between New York State. And it belongs to New York State, but between New York State and Canada. So it's in this broad area of the St. Lawrence River, and the Thousand Island Park was actually started as a Protestant Christian community, and they had a lot of strict rules about no drinking or smoking or lights out by 10 p.m. and things like that. But by the time Swamiji got there, it was becoming more cosmopolitan, and actually there were a lot of people there. In the park at that time of the year. They had running water, probably one sink in the reservoir up on the roof and one sink in the kitchen, and an outhouse for the other business. So it was a little bit primitive by our standards, but for those days it was probably perfectly normal. And there were a number of disciples there was a little bit of coming and going during these weeks, but there were a number of disciples who were there for the whole time. And Miss Waldo, Mary Ellen Waldo, took notes of some of the classes. He was at his best. He himself said afterwards he was at his best. He was in a very high state of mind, far away from the city and the natural beauty and the pressures of lecturing to large crowds. None of that was there, just with his intimate disciples. And he had evidently this vision of pouring his whole wisdom into them and making them teachers of Vedanta. He wanted them to become teachers, to spread the message of Vedanta far and wide. And he also initiated 2 sannyasins. The first was on July 7, 1895, a French woman named Marie-Louise, who received the name Abhayananda, the bliss of fearlessness, on July 7th, Sunday, July 7th. And then again on July 22nd, he initiated Leon Landsberg into sannyasa. He became Swami Kripananda. This book, Swami Vivekananda in the West, by Mary Louise Burke, it has a lot of wonderful stories about that time in Thousand Island Park and some of the incredibly inspiring stories of what happened there. And one of my favorites is actually how Sister Christine Greenstidel, actually Christina Greenstidel, or Sister Christine, and Mary Louise, Mary Funky, came to him. They had seen him speak in Detroit the previous, I guess in that spring or the winter or the spring, and were mesmerized by him and felt they had found their teacher, but they'd never met him. And then somehow they came to know that he was in Thousand Island Park. And they came hundreds of miles unannounced. There was no telegraph, nothing. They just came, and they arrived at night, and it was pouring rain, and they came and knocked on the door. And he came, Swamiji welcomed them into the community. So afterwards he would say, "These are my disciples. They came hundreds of miles to see me in the dark and in the rain." So that kind of longing for the teacher they had, and they received the full blessings. Sister Christine was also initiated on that same day as Leon Landsberg was initiated into sannyasa. She was initiated into brahmacharya. That means committed celibate life. Lifelong. So it's the sort of first initiation of monasticism. So it's most likely that on July 23rd, Swamiji wrote this poem. And let me just find that passage where it's described. So Mary Funky wrote in her memoirs, "One afternoon, when he had been telling us of the glory of renunciation, of the joy and freedom of those of the ochre robe, he suddenly left us, and in a short time he had written his Song of the Sannyasin, a very passion of sacrifice and renunciation." So Mary Louise Burke concludes that most likely he wrote this on the afternoon of July 23, because he had given monastic initiations on July 22, for which day there is no notes of the classes. And in the afternoon of that class, he quotes the poem. He says, "Let go the rope," which is a quote from the poem. So likely it was on that day. And he sent it then to India to be published in 1895. September 28, it was published, first published in print, and it has become a great inspiration to thousands of monks, I'm sure, and thousands of devotees who hear that call of if not external, at least mental renunciation, with the one goal of realizing our own true nature as infinite consciousness and bliss. And it's definitely along the lines of Advaita Vedanta, Shankara Advaita Vedanta. At this time, Swamiji had brought with him, or had sent to him and had brought with him the commentaries of the great commentators, the 3 great commentators of non-dualism, qualified non-dualism, and dualism. Madhvacharya, dualism; Ramanuja, qualified non-dualism; and Shankara, non-Advaita Vedanta. And somewhere in the reminiscences, it was revealed that actually among the students, Ramanuja was the favorite. Most of the students were maybe a little uncomfortable going fully Advaita, but this poem, on the whole, it does that. And also, amazingly, The cottage, of course, came to the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center of New York, the Vedanta Society, not the one that was founded by Swamiji, but the one founded by Swami Nikhilananda. And that cottage was acquired by them when it came up for sale, and it was thoroughly renovated in 1947. And while removing some wood paneling from the walls, they took it down to the studs, I guess, and totally renovated it. They found the original manuscript hiding in the walls. And I asked Swami Yuktavananda for it, and he was kind enough to provide it. And so it's digitally here, his first manuscript. And it differs slightly from the printed. I imagine he must have copied it out again while sending it to Alasinga for the Brahmavadan, and maybe edited it slightly. And then after that, it was edited again, because the current version in Complete Works differs just in a few words here and there. Actually, slight improvements in the meter and things like that. But so here you see some of his crossing out certain lines and changing words as he was editing it. But it seems like it just flowed out of him. So I think without further ado, let's go to it. I would like to say that these poems of Swami Vivekananda are worth committing to memory. I memorized this when I was visiting Mayavati before joining the order, but I had already decided I wanted to join, and I memorized it at that time. And so it's a memorized poem like this is it can be a great friend. We can turn to it in meditation, we can recite it to ourselves and remind ourselves of it. And nowadays, powers of memory are decreasing because we don't have to remember anything. We can just Google it and find anything. But to have something memorized is wonderful. And I found that memorizing Sanskrit was quite difficult for me, especially at that time. But memorizing English was quite a bit easier. And this has the ring of scripture. It's it's penned by an illumined soul and it just flowed through him. As she wrote, he disappeared for a short time and came back with the poem. So it just flowed out of him.
Was it written in English?
Yes, written in English.
So it's not translated?
It's not translated. He has wonderful English poetry, Swami Vivekananda. It was translated into Bengali, and Swami Vivekananda appreciated the translation very much. He saw the translation and he felt that perhaps it was even an improvement on his poem. But whatever it may be, we're going to take it up in English. And how many of you are unfamiliar with the poem, the Song of the Sannyasin? Okay, so most of you know it. Good. Well, it's beautiful. Get ready. So it starts out, I'll read one verse and then we'll talk about it. Feel free to ask questions or comments for each verse. I don't think we're going to get through the whole thing today, but we'll see how far we get. Wake up the note, the song that had its birth far off, where worldly taint could never reach, in mountain caves and glades of forest deep, whose calm no sigh for lust or wealth or fame could ever dare to break, where rolled the stream of knowledge, truth, and bliss that follows both. Sing high that note, Sannyasin bold, say Om Tat Sat Om. Okay, so this, as you know, this is each verse ends with this. Say Om Tat Sat. Ends with Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. So it's a call to this ideal of sannyasa, we think of sannyasa maybe on the one hand it has this idea of total renunciation. We don't want anything here. But more than that, it has this idea of affirming our true nature as infinite consciousness and bliss. So Om Tat Sat Om. Om, of course, is the root mantra of everything. It is the Shabda Brahman, that word which expresses the infinite non-dual reality we call Brahman. And Tat Sat, it's a kind of a formula. Om Tat Sat. Tat, that. Sat. Sat is that which exists, isness, beingness. reality. We say Sat Chit Ananda, infinite existence, absolute consciousness, absolute bliss, absolute. So Sat Om Tat Sat. It's a kind of formula which we use. It's also discussed in the Gita. Om Tat Sat Om. So this is each verse ends in this Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. So this first verse brings to mind that this is not something new. This is an ancient tradition going back to time immemorial. Men and women, since before history started being recorded, have heard the call to find God, to discover the absolute residing in their own hearts. So this song, Wake Up the Note, this song, what song? This song that the Sannyasin sings of Om Tat Sat Om, this song of renunciation and the glory of affirming who we are. That song had its birth. It's not a new song. It's an ancient song sung by countless saints and sages, men and women of ancient times and modern times. And he's telling us, wake up that note, that idea that we are still asleep to our true nature. We are, most of us, asleep in this sense life, in the life of the world, in our ordinary day-to-day lives. We are not awake to the Spirit. They are not awake to our true nature. We are not awake to the presence of the divine around us. So wake up that note, which is that song that has been sung since time immemorial. Where did that song come from? It had its birth far off, where worldly taint could never reach, in mountain caves and glades of forest deep. The sages, the seekers, they used to go away from the cities, away from the towns, away even from the villages, to find a mountain cave somewhere, or a secluded glade in the forest where they could meditate without any distractions. And those places, of course, and the Himalayas are the perfect example. That's the traditional place where the sannyasins and sannyasinis would go, in the mountains of the Himalayas. Which, if you haven't seen the Himalayas, you can't understand. When you see them, it's not like the pictures. It's like you're faced with something you never saw before, and it takes your breath away, because you heard that they're big, but they're big. And you heard that they're like divine, but you see, like, it just takes your breath away. And that's the call of the Himalayas. Here also we get a little hint of that call. So that in those caves and glades of forest deep, no taint of worldliness can reach there. And that calm, I love this line, no sigh for lust or wealth or fame could ever dare to break. So the calm is unbroken. Why? Because those who go there seeking the self, they have set aside. There's no sigh, even, like, there's different kinds of renunciation, no? So Sri Ramakrishna says there's the Markata Vairagya, the monkey renunciation. We get some blows in life and we say, oh, forget this life, and go go off to Benares to find God. And after a few months, the family gets a letter and from their family member saying, don't worry about me, I'm all right, I've got a job here and everything is good. I'll be back soon. I saw this, in fact, once. I had a good friend. We were spiritual brothers. We were like spiritual brothers. And I was called to join the monastery, and he was not. Well, soon after that, he had a blow in his, we can say, his romantic life. He had a very severe blow. And so I was talking with him, and I said, well, come down here to our monastery. And he said, yes, I want to come. I'm coming. Then I said, well, wait a minute. He's married now. I don't know if he's happily married. I don't know if he's still married, but he got married soon after that. So it's, that's sometimes that, that kind of renunciation, there'd still be some side that, oh, that's actually a monk or a nun who still has those yearnings inside will be a very unhappy monastic. So it's not meant for everybody. It's meant for a few people. But the ideal is beautiful, and we recognize it also in our spiritual life. If we have these hankerings, and these are the three. Sri Ramakrishna used to say kama kanchana. For the two main obstacles are lust and desire for satisfying the impulses of lust and greed. And here Swamiji adds, and this is also a difficult one, is the desire for fame. And it is said actually that for monks this is the big stumbling one, because as monks we do get some. I mean, look at Swami Vivekananda. He was he had worldwide fame. In India, still is, but he was, I mean, the crowds which turned out to see him when he returned from the West, incredible. The whole city turned out to see him. And he could digest that, but not too many people can digest. Even monks who have given up desires, supposedly, trying to give up all those desires. But that desire for fame is a very subtle one, to be known, to be seen. I'm a great Swami, I'm a great teacher. So that's another of the stumbling blocks in spiritual life, to want to be known, to want to be well known. And now it's all the more tricky because we are all these talks go on YouTube, and then we can see afterwards, how many views did I get? Oh, more than him, but less than him. Huh. Okay, so that's a danger. So here he says, in that calm, that unbroken calm which we find in the Himalayas, is also found in the heart of the sannyasin, where there is no sigh for lust or wealth or fame. Those desires have been stilled. So that calm, no sigh for lust or wealth or fame could ever dare to break. They don't even dare to come and break that calm. So strong is the renunciation of that ideal sannyasin about whom Swamiji is writing. And what happens? Where rolled the stream of knowledge, truth, and bliss that follows both. So that stream of, it's likened to a stream, like a stream falling down from heaven of the knowledge, the truth, and always the bliss. This poem is a poem of tremendous joy, that bliss that follows both. Sing high that note, Sannyasin bold. Sing high that note which is sung by the saints and sages since time immemorial. Sing that note, Sannyasin bold, say Om Tat Sat Om. Yes.
So I think that the fame could also be just like approval, like people like you because you did such and such, and you could be going, oh, I cooked a great meal today, people really loved it, that kind of, it doesn't have to be worldwide fame. It could be just wanting to be liked by other people and seeking approval.
Yes. Yes, and that is a normal human desire and all that, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so that's the first verse, which is very powerful in itself. Now comes the second verse. Yes.
Do you have any tips on how to conquer the idol of public opinion? That's the whole lecture.
How to conquer the idol of public opinion. This desire for fame or for worrying about what others think. Yes, it requires tremendous security in oneself, and it's extremely difficult because we live in community, and we naturally need that. For most people, we need that. Swami Vivekananda, he was ready to fight tremendous struggles he had in India and in America against public opinion. He was maligned and slandered and all of that. But he did have his brothers, whom he knew would stick with him through thick and thin, even if he was actually had fallen, as he had been claimed. They wouldn't have given him up. So he had that support.
Weren't some of them even against Swami Vivekananda?
Oh, so true. Some of them doubted when he was setting up the Ramakrishna mission and the work of the uplift of the masses of India, the service of God in the poor and the hungry and the uneducated and all that. Yes, there was opposition. I think let's go on to the next one. That's this desire for fame and public opinion. True. But there are different levels of it. On the one hand, a little bit of approval, you cook a nice meal, and at least you're going to see, did people enjoy it? I might not need the approval, but I want to see, are people finishing their plates? Then it becomes part of my service. It's not just wanting the approval, it's wanting, I actually want to cook a good meal. And are they eating it? Or are people leaving a dish half-eaten on their plate? Then let me try better next time. But do we, and this is where politicians sink, in this hole of saying what people want to hear rather than what is true or what is good, saying what people want to hear. So this next, the first one is the call to awaken, a call to us to sing that note, wake up the note and then sing it high. Wake up the note and then sing it high, sing high that note. Next verse, strike off thy fetters, bonds that bind thee down, of shining gold or darker, baser ore, love, hate, good, bad, and all the dual throng. No, slave is slave, caressed or whipped, not free, for fetters, though of gold, are not less strong to bind. Then off with them, Sannyasin bold, say Om Tat Sat Om. Okay, full of fire here. Strike off those fetters to recognize that we are bound by these things. It is a kind of a bondage, this desire for name and fame, this desire for money, this desire for pleasure. These are chains. And if we're really, when we get really serious about it, when we really want God and God alone, then this fire comes that I don't want it. Give it up. Strike it off. Strike off this fetter. It's a fetter. Strike it off. And then this is interesting, of shining gold or darker, baser ore. So love and hate, good and bad, all the dual throng. Here he's talking about the dvandvas. We often touch on this in the classes, that these come as the pairs of opposites, heat and cold, love and hate, pleasure and pain, good and bad. And no, slave is slave, caressed or whipped, not free. The slave might be caressed and treated well, but he's still a slave. Be free. This is a slavery, to be caught by these things. For fetters, though of gold, are not less strong to bind. So this mood would come even to Swami Vivekananda. And as if we know his life, we know that for a time in India, after Sri Ramakrishna passed away, he founded the monastery and he was there guiding them. And then he went off roaming in India and he said, don't follow me. Even this is a bondage. Even the love of my brothers is a bondage. Don't follow me. And for a time, at least, he went it's humorous how Swami Vivekananda loved him so much that he followed him. He happened to run into him somewhere, and he was so overjoyed that he stayed with him. And then Swamiji went off, and he followed him, and he followed him, and he was chasing him throughout the Himalayas in different places. And he'd arrive at places, and he'd heard that he had just left the day before or 2 days before, and then he'd go on and finally caught him again. Very touching stories. But here, even Swami Vivekananda wanted to give up that. Considered even that as a bondage.
Did he change his name for a time?
No, he changed his name to different. He'd go under different assumed names. In fact, the name Vivekananda he probably didn't assume until just before coming to the West, and it was probably the Raja of Khetri, I believe, Maharaja of Khetri, who suggested the name, and he took that name. Satchidananda was one of his names before that, and I'm not sure. I forget what the others were. Yes, Vividishananda. So he had a number of different names. So this idea that, first of all, to recognize where we are in bondage. And for each of us, it's unique. We have our own particular attachments and things which bind us down, bonds that bind thee down. They hold us back in spiritual life. So can we let go? And let go. Not necessarily physically. For most of us, we have families to look after, and we are living in community, and so it doesn't mean that we throw them all away and go to a mountaintop, and that's no longer the model. That no longer. It's very, very few who are fit for that kind of renunciation. But at the same time, we recognize sometimes where if something keeps coming up in our lives and we get caught in it and we get strong emotions about these things, maybe we need to look here that maybe this is an area where we need to let something go and let it go. And sometimes what we call love, sometimes it's not love, it's some kind of unhealthy attachment. And then we need to look at that, transform it into genuine love.
With respect to, didn't Thakur say to, even for householders, to go off periodically for 3 days or so and spend time? Didn't Sri Ramakrishna say to go off periodically into solitude, even for householders?
Yes.
And during that time, are we sort of shaking off the programming of society and some of the attachments?
That's a great way to look at it. That's a good idea. Sri Ramakrishna, that's right. And mostly life is so busy nowadays that we don't find time to do that. He would say even go for 1 day is good, or for 3 days, or a week, or a month, or a year. He would encourage people, go to solitude. And it's wonderful to do. We monks also, we don't do it, though perhaps it's also necessary for us to get away sometimes, because we get involved in our monastery management and all those things, and to get away sometimes is wonderful, just without any responsibilities, just time to think of the divine. And the instructions of Swami Prabodhananda are wonderful in this regard. He was the head of he's the previous head of our San Francisco Center, and there's a wonderful retreat property owned by the San Francisco Center in Marin County. It's our largest property of the Ramakrishna Order, and it's several thousand acres of pristine land in rolling hills and forests and in Marin County, is sandwiched between like a national forest and a state forest or something like that, and preserved by an act of Congress, believe it or not. And we have a retreat house there. And so before I joined the monastery, I went for a retreat there, and I asked him for a little advice. And very brief advice. He said, when you go there, just you and God. Just you and God. Forget about job, forget about your place, forget about everything. Just you and God. It's wonderful advice, and it stuck with me that whole week that I spent there. So that's a wonderful, thanks for bringing that up. That's really what this is suggesting. Yes, now and then we should do that. Make time, make a week or 3-4 days when we even go make an arrangement with our spouse, if we have a spouse, especially if they're also similarly aligned. You can take turns. So, all right, shall we go to the third verse here? Let darkness go, will-o'-the-wisp that leads with blinking light to pile more gloom on gloom. This thirst for life forever quench. It drags from birth to death, and death to birth the soul. He conquers all who conquers self. Know this, and never yield, Sannyasin bold. Say Om, Tat Sat, Om. It's really a call to light, no? The infinite light of our own true self. Let all darkness go, which darkness actually, it doesn't have any substantial reality. The darkness, what he's talking about, all this attachments, everything which drags us down, which binds us, which takes us to away from the consciousness of who we are. It's actually very insubstantial. It's just a will-o'-the-wisp. And it leads with blinking light. I never quite understood this blinking light, what it means. It leads with blinking light. What does that mean? One Swami said it's kind of like the false glitter. That could be, but that doesn't quite. I wonder what if we get any clue from his manuscript. Let's see. Let darkness go, the will-o'-the-wisp that leads with blinking light to pile more gloom on gloom. It's as it's printed in the manuscript here. So we can mull that one over. What does it mean exactly by blinking light? Like it's some kind of, it looks like light, but actually it's not real light. It's just blinking, and it makes us think that we're following light, but it's actually darkness, something like that. I'm not sure. Blinking light. To pile more gloom on gloom. It's the darkness is gloom. For the child of light, we are all children of light. We're children of immortal bliss, and yet we're wallowing in the puddles of name and fame and all these things. That's gloom.
Swamiji, sorry for just interrupting, but it says I looked up will-o'-the-wisp, and in Wikipedia says in folklore, a will-o'-the-wisp is an atmospheric ghost light seen by travelers at night, especially over bogs, swamps, or marshes. The phenomenon is known in much of European, and goes on and on.
Oh, he's so smart.
Jack-o'-lantern.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Wonderful. So it actually, a will-o'-the-wisp does lead with blinking light.
But it's fake. It's like it's not real.
Yeah.
It's a ghost light.
An atmospheric ghost light. Wow. Okay, so it's actually a phenomenon. It's
Seen
kind of,
by travelers at night.
it's a phenomenon that somehow with the chemicals arising from a bog, it makes some kind of ghost-like light which blinks and can lead people astray into a swamp.
Right.
Apparently.
Wow.
That's great. Thank you for looking that up. I never thought to look it up. I always thought that will-o'-the-wisp just meant something ephemeral. But now there's an actual specific meaning to it. That's wonderful. We've just opened a new understanding into this poem. That is wonderful. So it's something false that leads us into a bog or a swamp. It totally makes sense.
Actually, what you said is very clear. It goes on, it says, and is said to mislead travelers by resembling a flickering lamp or lantern.
Wow.
Which is exactly what you said.
Exactly. Okay, so now we got it. Now we understand it. Brilliant. Thanks for looking that up. Thanks to Wikipedia and to Narayana. Great. Okay. Beautiful. And so then he goes on this next line. This thirst for life forever quench. It drags from birth to death and death to birth the soul. Of course, here he's referring to the round of births and deaths, that we come again and again and again. And the ideal of, in Jnana Yoga, the ideal is posited as moksha, as freedom. And what is required in order to attain that is one of the sadhana chatushtaya, as you've studied, is longing, mumukshutva, longing for liberation. This poem is full of that spirit of longing for liberation and affirming that, yes, that's what I am. So this thirst for life, for again and again, I'm going to do this again and again and again. When does it come to an end? The round of birth, from birth to death and death to birth, the soul is dragged through life after life. Why? Because there's this thirst for life, for pleasure, for fame, for money, all those things.
I think Maharaj, Swamiji was referring by the wisp, that thing, same thing.
That is the will of the wisp. Yes, it's a false ephemeral something, and it drags us into darkness. Yes. From birth, and then he conquers all, or she conquers all. He's used a little bit. Of course, the language of that time generally didn't. The writers did not yet have the idea to write in a more universal, gender-neutral way, which is what it is. But now we can write in that way, and it's not hard, actually, if you understand that principle. He conquers all who conquers self. Means our lower self here. It's a self with a lowercase s. Know this and never yield, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. So know this, know that if we can gain mastery over our own self, our mind, our senses, our body, gain that mastery, we conquer all. We can conquer all. This is the what is to be conquered. Know this, and never yield. Don't give up. Keep going. Go on. Don't give up. Never yield. Don't yield to the blinking light, as it were. Go forward. Go constantly forward, and say Om Tat Sat Om. How I remember the order of the verses. Some of them I just remember, but some of them I have little clues in the previous verse. This never yield. Then I think of a farmer's yield. Reaps the crops, and the next line begins, who sows must reap. So that's how I remember the who sows must reap, because it never yields. And I think, next comes who sows must reap. Who sows, next verse. Who sows must reap, they say, and cause must bring the sure effect. Good, bad, and none escape the law. But whoso wears a form must wear the chain. Too true. But far beyond both name and form is Atman, ever free. Know thou art that, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Okay, here's the fourth, where we finally get to this, thou art that. What are we really? This is the law of karma. Who sows must reap. Yes. This is actually also in Christian, this is from the Bible, right? Who sows must reap. We reap as we reap as we sow. It's a common, even physics says every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Our actions have consequences.
I think as long as there was agriculture, there's been you sow what you reap. We reap what you sow.
Right. We sow the seeds, and if you sow rice, you reap rice, and if you sow wheat, you reap wheat. You reap wheat. So yes, we reap what we sow, and cause must bring the sure effect. Good, bad, and none escape the law. We cannot escape the law of karma. Here in the karma bhumi, this land of karma, we are caught by karma. And that's, of course, the whole idea of karma yoga, is how to be here and act and not be caught. But yes, the effect, good effect also. And this is reflected again from the second verse, the fetters of iron and fetters of gold. The bad and the good both bind us. Good. We sow a good action, we reap a good effect. We sow a bad action, we reap a bad effect. And none escape the law. But whoso wears a form must wear the chain. This is all in quotes. Who sows must reap, they say, and cause must bring the sure effect. Good, bad, and none escape the law. But whoso wears a form must wear the chain. Unquote. So he says, too true. He agrees. This is true. But far beyond both name and form is Atman ever free. Know thou art that, Sannyasin bold. So this is the solution, actually, to this wheel of karma. Ultimately, we affirm our true nature as Atman, as infinite consciousness and bliss. And so know thou art that, say Om Tat Sat Om. Yes, name and form is how we name this world. That we say time, space, causation, name and form. That's what this world is. On the one hand, time, space, causation, the three go together, and name and form go together. With every form we put a name, and every name signifies a form or an idea or something like that. Name and form. So we're to go beyond name and form to find our true nature. Okay, now he's going to talk about our dreams again. They know not truth who dream such vacant dreams as father, mother, children, wife, and friend. The sexless self, whose father he, whose child, whose friend. You all are yawning. Wake up! Wake up the note! Two of you are yawning at the same time. I know, it's a long day. It's tiring. It's been a long day.
It's a good class. It has nothing to do with
Okay, yeah, I know. I yawn. Evening prayer, I sometimes yawned. I heard that someone heard me yawning over the YouTube and criticized me because I was yawning over YouTube or yawning at the evening prayer. Sometimes it comes. It's all right. Wait. All right, let's try. And we're talking about dreams, so naturally yawns will come, dreams. They know not truth who dream such vacant dreams as father, mother, children, wife, and friend. The sexless self, whose father he, whose child, whose friend, whose foe is he who is but one. The self is all in all, none else exists. And thou art that, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Okay, these are dreams. Vacant, as he says here, vacant dreams. Father, mother, children, wife, husband, engineer, nurse, monk, driver, a cook, grandfather, grandmother. No, that come first. We become a wife or a husband, and then we become a father and a mother, and then we become a grandfather and grandmother. And if we, people will say, if you're lucky, you become a great-grandfather, great-grandmother. Vacant dreams, all of them. It's vacant dreams. We are identifying ourselves with what we are not. We are infinite spirit. We are infinite consciousness and bliss. And that is all that truly exists. Here, from the standpoint of Advaita Vedanta, where we reject everything else, we negate everything else. All these are just temporary dreams. They're dreams. All right. If we're going to dream, then we should dream but truer dreams, says Swami Vivekananda in another poem, which are eternal love and service free. But here, we are just dreaming these vacant dreams of our little lives, when actually we are infinite spirit, the glory of our own true self. That we have to remember, that we have to discover, rediscover, and affirm. And then we regain our own lost empire of infinite power, infinite strength, infinite joy. So these little dreams, they're just dreams after all. Of course, we can also look at them as play, which is which is what we talked about on Sunday. But today we're taking it from this standpoint that it's just a dream. Wake up from this dream. Wake up from this vacant dream that I'm running of a little something. I have just a little relation with a few people, and this is the whole story of my life is just the story of my little things and my little projects and my little job and my little family and all that. You are infinite consciousness, one and non-dual. That is your true nature. And you're just dreaming this little dream? Wake up from this dream. We are the sexless self. We are beyond male and female. We are infinite consciousness. How can that be a father or a child? How can that be a friend, or even, how can we have a friend or even a foe? There's but one. There is but one. He who is but one. The self is all in all. None else exists. And thou art that, Sannyasin bold. So this idea that there is one. The reality is one and non-dual. One non-dual infinite consciousness. So there's no question of friend and foe, of father and child, parent and child, of spouses, of anything. It's one infinite consciousness. And then, of course, the ramifications are when we are here in duality, then is the wife love for the sake of the wife, the husband love for the sake of the husband, the spouse love for the sake of the husband? No, for the sake of the self, for the sake of the self within. We affirm the self within everything. Okay, there's three verses that end with "Thou art that," Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat. This is the third one. There is but one, the free, the knower, self, without a name, without a form or stain. In him is Maya, dreaming all this dream. The witness, he appears as nature, soul. Know thou art that, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. This is a quiet one. It's a peaceful one. There is but one, the free, the knower, self, without a name, without a form or stain. In him, interestingly, he writes it as a personal pronoun rather than saying in it. We think of that infinite reality as beyond male and female. So why does he use him? That's a good question. Let's see what if the original manuscript, if we can have a look at that. Yeah, it's exactly as written here. It's exactly. It's amazing. He did very few corrections. The witness, he appears as nature. Interestingly, it looks like he appears as nature, God, and then crossed out God and wrote soul. Interesting. Very interesting. It could be. You mean with nature and soul? Right. Good point. This idea of what we see as Prakriti and Purusha, maybe the nature and soul. But he is the witness. This idea of Sakshi, that is simply the consciousness in which everything arises. The witness is everything. The witnessing consciousness, and that is our true nature. In Advaita Vedanta. In him is Maya, dreaming all this dream. Yes. So it is within that infinite consciousness that everything arises, including Maya, which dreams all this dream. I think we're almost out of time.
Because Swamiji was referring to relations. Maybe, as she rightly said, Purusha and Prakriti, dualism, he's saying that you go beyond dualism too, as you rightly said.
Of course, yes. The witness itself appears as nature and as soul, as a separate soul, and so actually it's a kind of staunch non-dual approach. Actually, there is only one, the one infinite and non-dual reality, and everything that we see, it's that infinite reality appearing as nature, as soul, as Maya is that which dreams this dream, which is unfolding within, which is unfolding in him, or in that reality, which is our own true self. All right, we'll read one more verse. It's beautiful. This is a beautiful verse. Where seekest thou that freedom, friend, this world nor that can give? In books and temples vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. Then cease lament. Let go thy hold, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. They're very poetic. Where do we seek? We're all seeking that. Actually, all human beings are seeking for peace and joy and happiness. And they're seeking it everywhere. But how few know that actually it's right here. And this idea that this world nor that, neither that infinite freedom, we won't find it in this world. We won't find it in that world, in the heavens. The idea of sannyasa is even giving up not only earth and hells, but even heavens, which comes in the next line, actually. In books and temples, vain thy search. You're not going to find it in a book. You're not going to find it in a temple. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. What a beautiful way of putting it. We are being dragged on, but actually it's we who are holding on. So let go. This idea of letting go is beautiful. Then cease lament. Cease. No more reason to lament. No more reason to grieve. We simply need, all we have to do is let go. Let go of that rope that drags us on. And then we know thou art that. So it's a glorious. How many verses did we do? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 13. We covered more than half. Brilliant. So we can have one more class on it some other time when the opportunity arises to do the second half. Comments, questions? Are there any people watching online that have questions or comments?
There's 37 people currently watching, but I don't think there's any questions.
Okay. Actually, not much. We covered the questions. Will-o'-the-wisp and blinking light. We covered that, and it's a tremendous poem.
I'm sorry, just one thing at the end when it said, let go of the thing. Can you say that one more time?
Mm-hmm. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. Thine only. Yours only is the hand that holds the rope that drags you. You're being dragged on by a rope, but actually it's your hand that's holding it. So all you have to do is let go.
And what's the rope? The desires of this world?
Well, that's a good question. What is the rope?
Or passion for life? To each person the rope is different?
Maybe so.
Okay.
I don't know. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags you on. Well, this thirst for life, this attachments and all of that.
Anything more than name, fame, wealth.
Name and fame and wealth. This rope, it's going to be a little bit unique for each one.
Oh, so it's just the same thing. Okay, so he's repeating.
This is in some ways it's a very repetitive poem. He says the same thing over and go. Om Tat Sat Om, thou art that. Our true nature is infinite bliss, and yet we're caught here. And see, it gives a little hints about how we're caught, and then give it up, shake it off, let it go. This, because it's now. Keep in mind, he was in a mood, right? Whenever Swamiji would enter a mood, he would embody that mood fully. So when he was speaking of devotion is everything. And jnana is nowhere to be found. When he's speaking of work, then it's work. Give up a whole life to work. Why do you work? Just work. Throw yourself into work. Give one life for work, for India's regeneration or whatever it may be. And when he's talking about monasticism, keep in mind he's just initiated 2 people into monastic life, and he's got his intimate disciples there, and he's pouring into them Advaita Vedanta on this day, and so he's just he's in it. He's giving it to them. He's giving to them the full blast of renunciation, and so this just flowed out of him as an ode to the monastic life. So it's doesn't mean that don't give up your passion for life. Your passion, just turn that passion to God. That's all. It's a joyous relinquishing, not a painful relinquishing. If it hurts to give it up, then don't give it up. It comes out of joy. It comes out of that call within. So it comes when the time is right. We give it up. It's not that we it's for a monk, for one who hears that call to be still engaged with ordinary things is very painful. And yet, for one who is not ready for that, to go live in a monastery is also very painful. So it's perhaps more painful. So it's this call. And remember, it's not, don't think, Swami Vivekananda would never say that monastic life is something selfish. He would say rather, the sannyasin is born for the bahusukha, bahuhita janaya, bahusukha janaya, bahusukha, bahujana sukhaya, bahujana hitaya, for the happiness of the many, for the welfare of the many is born. Thank you for reminding me. That's actually from Buddhism, most likely from Buddhism, that idea. Bahu jana sukhaya, for many people, happiness, many people's welfare. Bahu jana sukhaya, bahu jana hitaya. And as you know, the motto of our order is? Now, I'm not asking you because you know everything. Is?
One's own liberation, the good of the world.
Okay, good. One's own liberation and the good of the world. Atmano mokshartham jagad hitaya cha. So they go together. And there's this line towards the end, go thou the free from place to place and help them out of darkness. So that idea, that instruction for the Sannyasin. Well, thank you. My goodness, I love this poem, as you can tell, and thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it a little and read it with my full enthusiasm. Let's take, if you don't mind, let's just take 1 or 2 minutes of silence to reflect on this, and then we can close with a chant, with a prayer. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma mritangamaya, aviravirma edhi, rudrayate dakshinam mukham, tena mam pahi nityam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us unto light. From death, lead us to immortality. Reach us through and through ourselves, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Om, peace, peace.